Don't tell me God is silent when your Bible is closed. I know that I'm far from perfect, but I want to be close. Even on this broken road, I know that God's in control. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm on the right road. It's a song I heard from a Misfit Social Club. It's called Enough. And the first verse stuck out to me. It said, don't tell me God is silent when your Bible is closed. So we're in the series on hearing from God, and it just goes to remind us that the Bible is the primary way that God speaks to us. The Bible is the primary way that God speaks to us. So don't tell me God is silent when your Bible is closed. And we've been talking about hearing from God. We talked about the 5 ways that God responds to us. He can respond with a yes. He can respond with a no. He can respond with wait. He can respond with confirmation, clarity, or direction. And he can respond with silence. So you ask for something and he doesn't respond at all. And so the last maybe 4 lessons we've been looking at when God is silent. So apparently there's a lot to say about when God is silent. So God is silent. And last week we talked about why God doesn't respond. So why God may be silent. And one of the reasons we gave is that he may be changing you. God is changing you. So today we're going to dig deeper into that reason that God is changing you. So God may be changing you.
So he may be silent because he's changing you?
Right. So he's working on you. And we talked about it in the past as a time of being in the wilderness. Like the Israelites, they got a promise. God told them they go to the promised land. But then they had to go into the wilderness for 40 years before they got the promise. Because he had to change them. David, he promised him he would be king. But then next thing he knew, he was in the wilderness fleeing from his life from Saul because he wasn't ready yet. So God may be silent because he's preparing you, he's changing you. Philippians 2:12-13 says, so then, my beloved, just as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So that's the same passage we've been looking at in the sermons. Same way. So it's for God is at work in you. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if he looks at my video. I don't know. Anyway.
That's funny.
But yeah, so for God is at work in you, both to will and good. So God is at work in us. He's changing us. He's at work with us. So God took Israel out of Egypt immediately, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel. So he took Israel out of Egypt immediately, but it took 40 years to get Egypt out of Israel.
You better hurry up and work on me.
You got 40 years left. He might extend your life just so you keep working.
Give you 150 years.
Like I see, I'm not finished with you yet. And when you're in silence, it could teach you something about yourself. It could teach you something about yourself. So what happens when God is silent? You have James 1,
Yes.
2-4.
Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing.
So when your endurance, you're testing, your faith produces endurance, and endurance has its perfect result. Make you perfect and complete, lacking nothing. So some of the things that it does when God is silent, which is on the sheet, it tests your priorities. It tests my priorities when God is silent. It tests my identity. We're going to go into each of these. It tests my maturity, and it tests my faith. So when God is silent, it tests my priorities. It tests my identity. Tests my maturity, and it tests my faith. So So how's
Are we
it?
going to expound on
Yeah,
each
yeah,
one of
yeah,
those?
yeah, yeah. I've got to expound on it. So test my priorities. So test my priorities. Test what do I value, and in what order do I value them. So it can identify what are my idols. So we figuratively use the word idol to mean something that you value more than God, or something that gets between you and God. So what do you value more than God? Do you value your happiness more than God? Do you value other people's opinion more than God? Do you value significance or control more than God? Do you value money more than God? Do you value sex more than God? Do you value your family more than God? Your parents, your spouse more than God? Do you value your children more than God? We talked about how sometimes when people they lose a loved one, they lose a parent. I know some people maybe they lost their mother and it turned them away from God. They lost their faith because of it, and so it kind of shows what the importance they have or love. So do you have Luke 14:26?
Luke 14:26 from the NIV. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple.
So that's a tough verse we read. He said, wait a minute, does he want me to hate my father and mother, my brother and wife? I was like, wait a minute, doesn't he tell me to love my wife and to honor my
Honor my
mother and father?
parents.
Yeah.
But so the Greek word hate there is meseo, and it means to detest, especially to persecute, but by extension to love less. So it means to detest, but it also means to love less. So it's if you don't love less your father and mother, love less your wife and your children, love less your own life, then you can't be his disciple. So not necessarily that you hate him, but you love Jesus more. So that Jesus is the priority. So that you don't value another relationship more than your relationship with Jesus.
I lost my mother about 5 years ago, and I attended Grief Share, and the one thing that helped a lot was part of in one of the sessions they talked about making people essential in your life, and that if you make them essential, then it's difficult for you to put God first, and it meant, make God the essential piece, and everybody else you love them, but they're not essential. They're not like if you don't have them, then you yourself are lost. So that kind of speaks to that.
It does.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder for me because I lost my wife a year ago on the 31st of this month. And I love that woman, so I have to really be careful not to idle her. And I would catch myself, sometimes when I'm in prayer. And that's have to say, the Lord, you're good and you are first above all.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good, very timely piece for me.
Yeah, I thought about you when it came in.
Yeah.
So an example of this, or a bad example of this, but an example is the movie American Me.
I don't remember that.
There's a movie about the Mexican mafia, La M, and it was much of it was in prison. So there were these Mexican gangsters, and there was one of them called Puppet. And they called him Puppet because he would do whatever the gang told him to do. He was killing people. He was super loyal. He had super loyalty to the gang. And his little brother was on the outside, and he had committed a crime and got caught accidentally, and the leader of the gang took the fall for him and went to jail so his brother wouldn't go to jail. And then Puppet was getting out of jail, and the gang told him, we need you to kill your brother for what he did. and the leader told him, no, don't do that. But then he was leaving, the other people said, yeah, you have to kill your brother. And so Puppet ended up, we got out of jail. It was like a big tense moment. It was like, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? And he ended up, he killed his brother because he was loyal to the gang. He put the gang first. He loved God, or he loved his brother less than the gang. But so it's not a direct example, but it shows we should love God more than any other thing. God should be the primary in our life. So our priorities, it tells us what our priorities are.
I like what you said. Essential. That's very key word in that whole thought of that. What's essential?
Right.
You know,
Instead of maybe looking at them as a gift. If you look at it, this is just a gift that God has given me, instead of like you said, like them being the
Yeah, like
essential or the.
I had to realize I can live without my mother being here on earth.
But I can't live
if
without
I had
God.
made her essential, then I would have felt as if I couldn't live without her.
right. Yeah.
The
And
whole
that's-
Romeo and Juliet thing, they have to die because the other one died.
Yeah,
Right.
You would have been making your mother God. In essence, it's like, I can't live without her.
right.
She would have become your idol.
Exactly,
Your God.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so
And
when,
that's a dangerous place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I think about things, sometimes I'm thinking, wow, I see how people can commit suicide when they lose someone that they really love.
yeah.
Because that's where Satan can really use that.
Yeah.
Turn it. And so it's like, wow, yeah, that's not good. You gotta have, if you don't have Christ in your life, you can easily go to that place.
Or many times they sink into despair. There's many stories of people who have, the other spouse died 6 months after the first one
Yeah. That's, yeah. That's
because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so when God was silent, you asked for the healing, and God was silent. It'll test your priorities.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if some people, they lost someone, and they turn away from God. But for some people, it's maybe because they couldn't control God. They thought that, okay, I can get God. I want God to do this, and God wouldn't do it. And so they couldn't control God. And they're living their life, to manipulate people, to try to be in control of every situation. And they're saying, well, if I can't control God, then I don't want to be in this relationship with God. They don't want to be in any relationship where they're not in control. And there's a whole denomination they've created for people like that, where they teach you that it's all up to you, your faith. Basically, they teach you that with your faith, you can control God. You can get God to do whatever you want with your faith. And it's the word of faith. It's like whatever you want. If you have enough faith, God has to do whatever you want him to do. You want a new car, you want a new house, you want a new job. God has to do it because you have faith. And so it appeals to people that want to be in control.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have to worry about if God's going to do it. Now it's on me. It's like I don't have to just sit and wait. It's like I can do something. I can. It's all on me now. The faith.
Yeah.
It's about my faith that whatever I want in the world to happen, it's in my control now. So I don't have to wait on God. I don't have to. It's not in God's control. It doesn't matter what God's will is. It's up to me. Whatever I want, because if I have enough faith, I can do it.
That's deceiving.
That is very deceiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prosperity doctrine.
That's
And
no
that's
obedience in that deceiving. Sorry, brother.
No, I'm cutting.
That was that obedience. There's no obedience with that.
Right.
It's more like just name it, claim it, take it, grab it when you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Or you got to do something to get there. Even if they was to ask you to do something, they still won't be in obedience with it.
Right. And it's regardless of what God's will is.
Yeah.
This is what I want, and I'm going to make it happen.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
they talk themselves into believing that it's God, well, whatever it is that they want is
Yes.
God's will.
Well, because if I desire it in my heart, then it's God's will.
Right.
If I desire 43 mansions, and then it's God's will. If I desire to be president next month, it's God's will. You know, if I desire that to be my husband, it's God's will. You know, let alone the fact that he already has a wife. You know, I desire it. I desire it in my heart. God wouldn't give me that desire if it wasn't His will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard can be easily misinterpreted to say that sometimes you can't just sit around and pray. You've got to make a step and partner with God in doing things. You know, some people will just kind of use their situation to just be complacent or to be a victim, you know, waiting on God to do something. But and so when you hear from the pulpit or someone say, yeah, but you have to do this and you have to do that, it can be taken too far in thinking that you're in control. So I think more need to be added to that statement.
Yeah, well, sometimes you do. 'Cause we talked about that. Sometimes you're praying for an oak tree and He gives you an acorn. He gives you what you need, and you have to do the rest.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not His will. And you can say, oh, well, He told me I have to go do, and you go out and do.
Right.
But that's not what God wanted.
Right.
And, you know, God didn't tell you that He wanted that. You know.
Did you move before He gave you the word to move?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can test your priority. So it also can, when God is silent, it can test your identity. Test your identity is, what do I identify myself as? Do I see myself as a Christian first? A lot of times in interviews, you hear I'll hear them ask Christian rappers, are you a rapper that's a Christian, or are you a Christian that's a rapper? Basically, are you a programmer that's a Christian, or a Christian that's a programmer? Are you a Republican that's a Christian, or a Christian that's a Republican, or a Democrat that's Christian, or Christian that's a Democrat? It's like, what do you identify as? What's your primary affiliation? What are you most proud of? You know, if you're in a situation and someone says, tell me about yourself.
Oh, I'm a programmer. I work for IBM. I work for Google. I work. Yeah.
I live in such and such. I graduated from this and that. Or I got 4 kids, and one of them is going to college now. And I just got promoted to such and such. Or, it's like, what are you proud of? But it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting. We went to Zambia, and they're like 90-something% Christian. And it's interesting to see them on Facebook and things, because they identify themselves with their church, you know. And if there's their pastor's birthday, you know, everybody's changing their profile picture to be a picture of their pastor, and thank you, Dad, and like, you know, they'll introduce themselves first as, oh, I go to such and such church, you know. It was just more of their identity, because the whole country was Christian. It's like, I don't know why we were missionarying over there, but we should have brought them over here. Yeah, God was changing me. He definitely changed me. He definitely changed me over there. But yeah, so it tests your identity. When God is silent, it'll test your identity. Another thing it'll do is it'll test your maturity. Test your maturity. So I've seen a kid in the store, and he asked his mother, could he get some popsicles? He said, I saw some red popsicles, and she said, okay, put them in a basket. And he jumped up and wanted to open them and eat it. And she wouldn't let him eat it. She wouldn't let him eat it. And he's got on the floor and he's crying, I want to eat it. She's like, you got to wait till you get home. And she's like, I want it now. And his brother was standing there, and his brother was just going to wait till he got home. He wasn't yelling or anything. So what was the difference between the two? One of them was more mature. One of them was more mature than the other one. So the inability to wait for something you want is a sign of immaturity. If you can't wait for something you want, is a sign of immaturity. So when you ask God for something and He's silent, it tests your maturity. So the patience is a mark of maturity. It's like, are you yelling and crying, throwing a tantrum because you don't get what you want? That's a sign of immaturity, immature Christianity. So when God is silent, it'll test your maturity. It'll test your maturity.
Is there another example anybody can think of?
Another example? Another example, well, I've been going to singles Bible study for 10 years, so a lot of my examples will be, so if someone's it's like, I want all the examples I heard, so if someone says, oh God, I want a husband, I want you to be my, and then I've known many through the Bible study that, you know, they're active and they're probably, they know, I need you to bring me a man of God, I need you to, and then 6 months later, their stomach is a bit bigger. They couldn't wait. They were pregnant. They couldn't wait. They weren't patient. They went and found their own, and you know, they didn't marry the guy because it was a no good guy. They didn't wait for God to bring them something. They were impatient, and they went out and found their own. And anybody else have an example?
I was just thinking, and blessing people on the road, you know. I mean, I drive for a living, so.
Oh, man.
You pointing up the guy with one finger.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, for me, I know that my maturity level has grown, because now a lot of stuff that usually would get me, I mean, it still gets me, but how I think about it now, my mindset is different, you know.
That guy might shoot me.
No, I don't think about that. I think about, that's me.
Yeah.
That's what I think about now. I think about, you know, that person just cut me off. I think about, you know what, God, thank you for showing me me. Because
There you go.
how many times do I drive and my mind is completely somewhere else and I cut someone else off, not even aware of what's going on. So I know that God has been working on me, you know, and just like even at work, you know, when I don't like how things are going, how management is running things, I go and I say, you know, Lord, thank you for showing me me. I'm no better than that person. You know, I don't like how they're running things, but that's me. That's me. Thank you for showing that. Forgive me. You know.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
So your mindset starts to change. You know how you view things. Yeah.
I was being just sort of, which I shouldn't have been, part way facetious, in that you learn too that you can't be as quick-tempered with people, because they will get out and shoot you.
Yeah.
They sure will.
You have to
You
look
don't want
out
to
for
get
that.
out. Just stay in the car. Right? You over.
Somebody driving, they're gonna shoot you.
Yeah.
They tell you get out the car, and you get out.
They run you over here. Crazy.
Yeah, so it'll test your maturity, and lastly, when God is silent, it'll test your faith. It'll test your faith. So faith gets stronger the more that it's tested, and it tests whether you really believe, whether you really trust God. Do you trust God, or do you need to take it into your own hands? And a lot of times people will lose their faith when God is silent, when they've been asking for something and they haven't heard anything. It'll test your faith. It'll test your faith.
I have well, you guys can tell me. It's like one thing that I deal with is like when God is silent and I'm dealing with the situation, you know, and when I pray, I talk to him, and, you know, I would say, okay, Lord, God, I don't like this. I don't like it. Don't know what you're doing. You know. But is it faith? This is my question. Is it faith to say, you know, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm gonna be here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
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 Trust in you. Yeah.
I don't like it. Well, I'm trusting you because I don't have no choice.
Well-
Is that faith?
Yeah.
You know what I
because
mean?
You do have a choice, but you're
No.
choosing. You're
No.
choosing to be patient.
No. In this situation, it's
Right,
it's like, okay, I'm homeless now. You know, I don't like it. Okay, God, you gotta do something. I don't like it, but I'm gonna trust you because right now I don't have a choice. I'm just gonna go back and sleep in my car. Is that faith?
Yeah, you're trusting and you're giving it to him, right? Like you're giving the situation over to him.
Or I can
Or like what else would you do?
go squat. Or you know, take matters into my hands and
Yeah.
you know.
This is your will for me.
Yeah.
You know.
That was just my question. Is you know,
Is that faith?
is that
It's faith
is that
if you're trusting Him.
Right.
That
yeah. So
Yeah.
And that you know that he'll do it in his time,
uh,
even though you'd like it tomorrow.
no now
Right.
tomorrow
today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Testing of your faith.
Yeah, a lot of times, you know, I have friends that say, "Oh, you must have been praying for patience." No, I don't. I don't pray for patience. There's enough stuff in this world to test my patience.
Yeah.
I don't pray for patience.
Right.
Yeah, that's what.
You know. Anyway.
So when God is silent, sometimes it's because we're praying to remove the symptoms. We're praying to remove the symptoms, but God is more concerned with the root cause. So we're praying. So what we're praying for is a symptom of an issue, but God is it's trying to address the real issue, and we're focused on the symptoms. We're focused on the symptoms, and so an example would be if someone's saying, "God, you know, let me win the lottery so I can get out of debt." But they say nearly a third of the U.S. lottery winners end up bankrupt in a few years. And so it wasn't. So I mean, there are scenarios where people need it, but then there are other scenarios where people, if you're spending more than they're spending more money than they have. And when they get the lottery money, they're still spending more money than
Right,
they have.
right.
The issue wasn't that they didn't have enough money. The issue was they were spending more money than they had.
Yeah.
And so so winning the lottery isn't going to solve the problem. You know, the problem is a deeper problem. And so the core issue with them being that they buy things to feel worthy or to feel valued when they buy things. And so God is working on that issue, their self-worth, their value. You know, it's not the lack of money issue, it's the self-worth issue. So God is working on the core issue. So a lot of times he may be silent because he's trying to get to the root of the root cause of the issue, not dealing with the symptoms. Maybe it's a character issue. Maybe it's a brokenness issue, something that needs to be healed. So the question is, are you willing to, you know, if you ask for something and God, instead of giving you what you want, he's trying to change you. He wants to change you. The question is, are you okay with that? Will you be okay with that?
I tie that in with the first one. It's testing my priorities.
Yeah.
I just want a temporary fix, which then it's going to reoccur, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a thing where I just need to be a better steward of what he's given me.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
better steward.
In this situation, it's talking to people who specifically they're buying things to make themselves feel better.
Retail therapy.
Retail therapy. And so it's not even a money issue. They're praying for money. They're I mean, it turns into a money issue, but the core problem isn't a lack of money issue. It's how they make themselves feel better. How they make themselves. And we see the same thing in mate selection. So I just did a series on relationships. So we're gonna have a few of these. So they say 90% of relationship success is determined by your mate selection, by the person you
How much
chose.
percent?
90.
90%. Oh, say that again.
90% of relationship success
Oh,
is determined by mate selection.
oh, okay.
Who's choosing who?
Yeah.
Well, who you choose?
Like why you chose.
Well, you have to agree to get chosen.
That could be the question.
So if you see a pattern, so if you see a pattern, so some women say, oh, all men are dogs, all men are dogs, or some men will say all women are demanding and entitled and unappreciative, and if you say, yeah, all the relationships I've been in, you know, the men just cheated, so all the men are cheaters. They say all the relationships I've been with, the women were just unappreciative and demanding, and it's like, okay, so it's like, okay, it's you. And then it's the people you've been in a relationship with. So it could be that, you know, all of the whole male population are cheaters. It could be that all of the female population are unappreciative, entitled, and demanding. Or it could be on this side is you.
Right.
You're the common one in every relationship you had. If every relationship is a
Common
cheater,
denominator
then
in that equation.
then you're the common denominator.
Yeah.
And that's
Your discernment.
and that's something God is showing me. So it's so the problem being that you're attracted to the wrong type of person, and you're attracting the wrong type of person. It's like, so if all the men you date are this, then that's the type of men you're attracted to, and that's the type of man you're attracting. And that's something God's showing me.
There's a lot of truth to that. I know after I divorced, it's kind of sidetrack. Strike from the record. No. after I divorced, I started dating, and then I started noticing this pattern. I was like, man, I keep running into all these insecure women, you know. And then after a while, it dawned on me, just like what you're saying. You know, I had to take a step back, and I said, I need to go get counseling. You know, because if I start hearing the same thing from this person and that person and this person, and they don't know each other, right? But I'm hearing the same thing, I'm like, maybe I need to go get help.
Yeah, it's the same.
And I did, you know, I went and got therapy, and I tell you, it was the best money outside of learning how to swim that I spent, you know, because I went inside this therapist, and I went there. I said, man, what's wrong with me? I was like, I'm a mess. What's wrong with me? He looked at me. He said, nothing's wrong with you. You just don't know who you are. And we went through this whole process of finding out who I am and what makes me tick, what makes me think. You know, what are my high needs? What are my, you know, what can I deal with? What can I not deal with? And I discovered I'm high maintenance. It's not the women, it's me. It's like I'm high maintenance. I was like,
But did you find out the core reason of why you are?
it doesn't matter, because now, just like having a
Michael.
Michael thing, I have a senior moment. I just had a birthday last week, but it's like Michael was saying, you know, it's like who you choose. That's the you know why I am the way I am It doesn't matter. So if I'm choosing somebody, for instance, if I'm a very clean person, or if I'm a very godly person, right? But I choose someone that's not godly or not very clean, but they have other qualities that I like, we're gonna clash. Because if those are high needs for me, my spiritual life and whoever I'm with have to be spiritually and
Yeah.
you know,
compatible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though you have all these other qualities that are good, it's gonna clash.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and there's gonna be trouble in paradise.
So that's
the-
like you, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But finding the core could help. I mean,
Yeah.
it does help,
Yeah,
but I
we
mean,
don't repeat.
it doesn't. But knowing the problem is the start. Is
Yeah,
the
because some we
start to
carry
heal.
around wounds. you
Yeah,
know, from
yeah.
our childhood.
Childhood,
and
yeah.
Different relationships.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to be in touch with that, which is maybe leading us to why we make bad decisions. And we don't understand why we keep making these bad decisions.
Yeah.
So,
Stop
Yeah.
making decisions.
Yeah. So we're gonna touch it. I'm thinking maybe in the next series we may get into that, but a little bit of that now. So like another example is a woman says, "Oh, these men just want sex. All these men I mean that just want sex." And I'm like, well, where you meeting these men? At the nightclub. It's like, okay, well, what are you wearing at the nightclub? He was like, oh, you got the skirt up to here, the shirt down to here. It's like, well, you fishing with the wrong bait. You're like, that's what you gonna catch. And you're
maybe
fishing
the
with
wrong
that bait.
Yeah.
And in the wrong location.
Wrong date.
Or your dating profile picture is super sexy, and you can play the. That's the. So the issue is you're fishing with the wrong bait, or you're promoting an image that's different than what you want. You're promoting a sexual image or something.
unintended.
But the core issue is why you're doing it. And she's doing it because she's not doing it because she wants sex. She's doing it because she needs validation. She's doing it because she liked the likes on Instagram or Facebook that people give her, and she needs the validation, and it makes her feel significant. It's like that's the core. So God may be trying to get to the core of the issue, but instead of just giving you what you want. If God gave you what you want, then you would never get to the core. Like if you had what you want, then you would never discover this deeper issues that you have. Another example would be somebody who's in an abusive relationship. They're in an abusive relationship, and then they get out, and a year later they're in another abusive relationship. They're in another abusive relationship, and maybe in between they got with a really nice guy, but then they broke up with him because
That's right.
because it was like so. But it's so they're seeking that,
Nice.
and it's so the issue is they're choosing the wrong people. The wrong people are choosing them, but the core issue is that somehow, maybe in childhood they associated abuse with love.
Yeah.
So somewhere, somebody they loved, there was an abuse, and so they okay, this is what love looks like.
That's the norm.
And so whenever, a lot of times when we're looking for a person, it's like we're looking for what we experienced. If you grew up in a family where everybody was fighting, your view of love is fighting. I remember I had a girlfriend that I was saying, oh man, we just argue so much. I don't know if this is gonna work. And she was like, oh, this is the best relationship I've ever had. She said, this is the least I've ever argued. I'm like, what in the world?
I had a manager like that. Like,
That's funny.
oh, you like to manage with conflict. Yeah, I thought, well, that's not where I'm at. And because she boasts about how she had all these different arguments with almost everybody on the staff. I don't have time for that. I'm not here.
I'm gonna have to use that. I think that's my manager, like so. Manage
Some
the
of them
conflict.
managed by conflict.
I
And
might
that's
get fired
That's
if I tell
toxic. It's
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's very toxic.
Shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But she had some issues though
Right.
that
I'm not a doctor. at work.
Yeah, and then one more relationship example is the fixer and the taker. So if you have one person who's a fixer or achiever or a pleaser or a nice guy, or then you have the other person who's a taker or a rebel or a predator, or so the fixer, they blame themselves for everything that goes wrong in a relationship, and the taker blames someone else. So they fit together well. The fixer gives without taking, the taker takes without giving. So they match. The fixer feels like they don't have a right to say what they feel. The taker feels like they can say whatever they want. The fixer feels,
Say that again.
the fixer feels that they don't have a right to say what they feel. So they like if they have an issue with something or something bothers them, they don't want to speak up because they don't feel they have a right to. They feel it may damage the relationship.
They want to make sure everything is fixed. Yeah.
So they don't want to cause conflict.
yes.
They're avoiding conflict.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas the taker, they don't have a problem saying whatever they feel. Anything that doesn't bother them, they'll just say it. You know, oh, you know, you. It's like you.
There are profiles like that, amiables and those that are direct, something like that. I forget the term.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is not a good match. 'Cause
Well, that is well, it's a good match in some ways, both, but it's a horrible match in other ways. But it's a good match because it's the match that in their current state, that's the person they're going to get.
yeah.
And the fixer, they have too much conscience and they're always thinking about the other person in the relationship. And the taker has no conscience and they're always thinking about themselves. And those two will come together. And the fixer, because the fixer, they don't like themselves, so they're going to look for somebody who's the opposite of themselves.
Plus, they need someone to fix.
They need someone
It's
to
in
fix.
them to
Right.
fix.
Yeah.
And to look for a project, you know.
Yeah.
And the taker is because they're that rebel or whatever. It's almost like the fixer's like, oh, I can change you.
Yeah, or I can help you. Or like if it's an abusive relationship, you know, it's someone alcoholic, I can help you. But the fixer, so the problem is, you know, they're attracted to the wrong people and they're attracting the wrong people. That's the issue. But the core issue is that their view of love is tied to trying to please someone who's hard to please. And that could come
And they'll
from
never get there.
But you'll never, you're right.
They
yeah,
will
but
never
you'll
get
never
there.
get there.
Right.
But they're so like it could even be, you know, as a child, you know, you're like, Daddy, look. Daddy's like, yeah, nice. And it's like they're trying to amuse them, they're trying to please them, but they'll never please them, and so they think, oh, well, that's what love is. It's me trying to amuse, trying to entertain someone who's hard to please, and so now that's what they go through life trying to find people who are hard to please, because that's what love looks like to them. Is the core issue. So repetition, if you don't get healed, then you're going to continually have the same problem. You're going to continue to have the same problem. They called it repetition compulsion. What you don't complete, you repeat. What you don't complete, you repeat.
Sound
So
like school.
you know, Pat,
Stand back a grade.
third grade again?
They still in kindergarten.
Yeah. So until you fix the issue, any relationship is likely to fail. I mean, you know, obviously God can change. If you turn it to God, God could change you and God could change the other person. But yeah, you're setting yourself up for failures. And so that's we're trying to remove the symptoms. We're praying to remove the symptoms. We're praying to fix the symptom that isn't the real problem. We don't know the real problem, so we're praying to God for a solution to it. But He may be trying to resolve the real problem.
Right.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
Makes sense.
I think we just discussed.
Okay. So a lot of times you'll keep in that cycle until you hit rock bottom. And then it's not until you hit rock bottom, that's when a lot of people will start to look inside. Okay, well maybe there's something I need to change, or maybe they start looking inwards, and sometimes you have to be in a low state to accept the truth. Sometimes not to, because you can't tell an alcoholic when they're out partying and having fun. That's not the time to say, "Hey, I think you're an alcoholic." You have to wait till when they're down and depressed afterwards.
Yeah.
That's the time you tell them you're an alcoholic. So a lot of times people, when they have to hit rock bottom, they have to be in a low situation before they can accept the fact that something needs to change.
That's what my wife and I would always say. Once a person gets sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when they're going to do something about the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
When you get down to that, because no one can point it out to you until you start getting sick of it yourself.
Right. Until the pain of the situation is bigger than the pleasure you're getting out of it, or the comfort.
Right.
So you're comfortable in it. It's like, I don't like it, but I don't dislike it enough to do something. It's like, I don't like it, but I don't dislike it enough to take the risk of the unknown. It's like the risk of the unknown is scarier than, I'll just stay with this little issue.
People will stay in the victim role because they're getting something out of it.
They're getting something out of it.
When you no longer, when there's no payoff in that, and you realize it, then you'll be really ready to make some changes.
Unless they're, like I mentioned, if that's what they're down deep, that's what they think love looks like, then they're going to get sick and tired of it. But eventually, they're going to end up in that situation again.
Yeah.
They're going to get sick and tired of it, and they may find somebody who's not like that. But then they're going to eventually go back to that until they realize that they have a need that's filling. Until you recognize what that need is. If you keep ending up in that same bad situation, it's because it's satisfying some need for you. Okay. So until you recognize what that need is and address that, you're going to keep going back into that same situation because that's what's comfortable. Right. Even though it's uncomfortable at the time. Yeah,
it's not uncomfortable enough.
It's not uncomfortable enough, but it's also it's what you view love as, and you need love, and that's what you think love looks like. So that's what you're unconsciously actually going after. And so if you don't see that, then you don't think that's love. So if you're used to abuse being love, if you're in a situation where you're not being abused, then to you that's not really love. So you're gonna cause drama and conflict until either that situation turns that way, or you're gonna leave and get out and find another bad situation until you get to rock bottom. But if you get sick and tired enough, then you'll change.
Make a change.
Yeah, then you make a change.
Find a way to make it.
Yeah, if you don't have enough discipline or motivation to change, then you have to get the pain to motivate you, the situation to change.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story. Someone once told me. They said this gentleman was walking down the street, and he walked past his neighbor's house, and his neighbor had a dog sitting on the front porch. They had one of these old wooden front porches, and the dog was just howling, it's crying. So the man went up and knocked on the door, and he said, "Hey, Joe," he said, "Don't you hear your dog out here howling?" He said, "Yeah, I hear him." He said, "Man, he just keeps howling, man. Something's wrong with him. You ought to go check him out." He said, "No, he's okay." He said, "But listen to your dog, man. The dog just keeps howling." He said, "No, the dog's fine, man." He said, "What's wrong with him?" He said, "Oh, he's sitting on a tack." He said, "Well, why don't you help him? Move him off that tack." He said, "Well, when he gets tired of sitting there, he'll get up and move." And that's that's hitting that rock bottom, right? Sometimes we just sit there, on that tack, being stuck, and cry and sit there and go through it.
And then some people take that as their identity.
Yeah.
And they come, every time you see them,
victim.
"How you doing?" "Oh, that tack, man. Woo, this tack is just wear me down. Like every time you see how's your day? Ooh, this tag.
And the
Did you see the
reward-
49ers? Woo, this tag. Wait, I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you about the tag this time.
That's right.
Yeah.
but the reward in that, because there's got to be a reward for it, is that they get attention.
Yeah.
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 That's the key thing.
And that's the payoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's why they don't want to change the situation.
Yeah.
Because they get attention.
Yeah. And it's never, because you can never, if you jump in a conversation and you start bragging about, hey, I got this and this, people will think, oh, But if you jump in, you're like, oh, I had this bad situation, no one's going to say, oh, we don't want to hear about it, or, oh, that bad person. So it's like you can jump in any conversation, oh, this just.
Yeah, if you say that enough around the same
It's
people.
like,
People start walking the other way.
brother, you came here with that same thing 6 months ago. When are you going to start having some victories? 'Cause we've already talked to you.
Yeah.
And you're coming back with the same situation over and over. Something you need to do.
Well, that's
we
if
want
you're.
to hear about a victory.
That's if you're in the men's group, but if you're at the coffee cooler,
Yeah, I think it happens with anybody. If you're start to hear, people will just kind of cut you off. They don't-
yeah, they'll cut
they
you off.
know-
They'll just avoid you.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, they'll avoid you.
Exactly, yeah. So, then there's no more payoff. Then maybe it'll change.
Well, there'll always be
go
somebody
find
because
somebody
they'll
else
find
to
they'll find a
complain to.
fixer.
they'll find
They'll find a fixer that's like,
That's
oh,
true.
really? Oh. And then that's just like really, as soon as that person, oh, I can't believe that. Then they'll, but yeah, like a lot of people, they'll come to church when they're in rock bottom. That's when they'll come to church, or when they get laid off. I remember Bible study. That's when we used to be in singles Bible study. Every new person would come in. Like half of them, they had just got laid off. They had time now.
They had nothing to do. So.
I'm trying to make tie this in and say, trying to tie that statement in. You need to hit rock bottom before what? What is it that we're saying?
Oh, need to hit rock bottom before you'll change.
Before
Before you'll change. Before you'll make a change.
we're praying to remove something.
And sometimes that changes before you'll actually turn to God versus trying to figure it out on your own. And, so avoiding rock bottom would be, if we're talking about hearing from God. So if you can hear from God, then you can change directions and do things that God will tell you to do, and you don't have to hit rock bottom.
That's what
If you can hear from God, or you're listening to God and in communication with God. Yeah. But there is learning in suffering. Let's see. Natalie, you have Hebrew 5:8?
Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered.
So it's talking about Jesus. Jesus learned obedience from what he suffered. So even Jesus learned from suffering. So suffering can help us grow, but it's best to avoid it if you can hear from God. But it can help us grow.
Yeah. What are you tying that statement to? I'm sorry, I'm getting. So, is that the next one? God is disciplining
No, that's
you? You're still. you
hitting
need to
rock
hit
bottom.
rock bottom.
Hitting rock bottom.
And you said,
So yeah, God is disciplining you is next.
Oh, that's a powerful statement.
Oh wait, okay, go ahead.
No, I've often read that and heard it, but I never really paid attention to it. I mean, this is Jesus. He learned. It says, he was the son, but he learned obedience. How did he learn that obedience? By the things he was suffering. So he's going through this situation, and I don't like what I'm going through, but I'm going to put my faith in the Father, that the Father knows exactly what he's doing. I don't like it. I'm suffering. And I'm in this situation, but it's your will, God. This you're silent right now. I'm praying for you to take this away from me and whatever. But in going through all of that, the lesson was you learned obedience. I mean, it's like that's a hard lesson, man.
Yeah.
I'm just listening. I mean, just hearing what this is saying. You know, it's like Jesus could have just not gone through what he,
Right.
you know, he didn't have to suffer. He could have said, "Hey, I'm going. Hey, Dad, I'm coming back up."
Called 1,000 angels.
These people, man, and they don't respect me. They all this stuff I've been doing for them, and they still want to do this. I'm coming back up, you know. But that wouldn't have been obedience to the Father,
Right. Right.
you know. And through that suffering, man, learn obedience. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
just.
no, that was
I'm just. My brain is just.
You're expounding on it.
Yeah.
I just left it out there. You
I'm not-
expounded on it. It needed to be expounded on.
Yeah, I was just thinking, man. There's you know, which even goes back to the very first scripture. You're at Philippians 2:12, right? And talked about our trials and is going to through these trials and whatever is going to perfect us. What was that? What, patience? You know, it's like I don't need no trials, man. That's okay. I don't need them.
Gives you endurance.
You know, but you're gonna build up. It's like count it all joy. I don't want this joy. I don't want the joy. I don't want to count this joy, but yeah, that's powerful. Something I need to meditate on more. Wow. Anyway,
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
just thinking out loud. Just,
Yeah. Okay, you have Hebrews 12, 7,
Yeah, 12,
11,
11.
7, 11.
11.
God is disciplining. So the other option, God is silent, is he's disciplining you.
Okay, go ahead. All right.
Oh, yes.
Hebrews 12, 7 through 11. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us and respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplined us for our good in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it.
So the discipline. So God is disciplining us. So if we're going through something, maybe God is disciplining us. So it's not punishment. It's not. So punishment is okay. Here's the offense, and the punishment is okay. This is payment for that offense. But discipline is intended to change your action, to change your behavior. It's not just punishing you for something you did wrong. It's trying to change you. It's trying to correct something so that you don't go through it again, or it's trying to change your behavior. So it's done out of love. It's so like you look at the prison system. Some people say, "Oh, well, the prisoners are coming back," and go. And so some people. So is it just a punishment? You do this crime, you get this many years, or is it supposed to change them into rehabilitate? It's supposed to rehabilitate them.
Right.
So that's always the debate. You know, is the prison system, is it rehabilitating? It's like, no, but is that the purpose? So, but God, he doesn't punish you just as payment for sin. He may discipline you, though, to try to change you. So you may go through something for changing. And it reminds me of an episode of this TV show called Good Times. There was an episode of Good Times where Michael was hanging out with this gangster boy, a little thug boy, and they were hanging out at the house. And then it was time for Michael to study, so he started studying. The guy got up, he said, okay. He said, oh, he's like, so you studied a little bit, then he said, okay, I'll see you guys. And then, so Michael's father, James, gets up and said, where you going? He said, oh yeah, well, Michael's studying, so I'm gonna let him study. He said, no, we study around at this house. It's time to study. And he said, oh, yeah, well, Michael can study. He said, no, you're going to have to study too. He said, oh, well, I don't live here. He said, well, no, but you're going to have to study. he said, what you going to do? You going to take your belt off on me? He's like, yeah, I am. So he grabs the boy, goes in the back room.
Wearing them out.
Michael says, Mom, do you think Dad's really going to whip him? And she said, is a bean green? Yeah. You see him try to run out, and he grabs him, brings him back. And so then lady comes back and he studies. But then later on, it says time for dinner. He's like, okay, well, I guess I'll leave. It's time for dinner. And they're like, no, you should stay for dinner. He's like, stay for dinner? I thought you guys didn't like me. And they're like, no, we like you. He said, well, you guys, you whipped me. I thought you. They said, no, but we whip you because we care about you. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, you care about me? And he was like, yeah, I care about you a little bit. So God disciplines us because he cares about us. Because he cares about us. Right. So
that's a good analogy.
It's an act of love.
Yeah. That's a good point. When I first had my son, I used to always listen to Focus on the Family, right? And I remember hearing this one thing talk about disciplining your children, right? And I always, kept it in mind. And he talked about how, like, when you get ready to discipline your child or spank them or whatever, make sure you separate your anger, wait a day or whatever, so that when you're disciplining them, you're not disciplining them out of anger. And it really works, because it's like, I remember my son when he was like 5 or 6 or something, he did something, and it was like in the middle of the day, and we're out, and I told him, I said, hey son, you're gonna get a whooping for that, right? And so it was the middle of the day. The rest of the time I told him that, we're out, we're at the park, we're playing and having a good time, basketball, whatever. Get home later on that night, he get ready to go to bed. I said, son, you remember the situation that happened? You know why you're about to get this spanking? You know that wasn't cool what you did, right? And so that really helped, because then, looking at this, God is not out of God's wrath that he's punishing us. It's because he cares about us, and he loves us, and he wants to change us for good, and not just crush us. It's not out of anger. I'm mad because you were bad, so let me take my wrath out. It's like, no, I love me discipline you, and I know that this discipline will change you. I want the best. And I want the best for you.
But that's right when your son thought he'd gotten away with it.
That's
the thing. That's like, oh no. So it gave both of you a chance to think about it.
Well, it helped me too, because now I'm not upset, and I'm like,
you
embarrassed me out there.
Exactly.
And
it gives him more time to think about what he did.
Just 2 good licks.
That's always torturous stuff for the receiver. I remember my dad would do that, and I'm like, wow, when is he gonna? So my whole day is waiting.
The whole day is
my whole day. When is he gonna attack?
Just get it over with.
That anticipation. So sometimes God is silent because he's disciplining you. So it's not to say that every time something bad happens to you, it's God disciplining you, but that that is something that he does do. Just when, I mean, there are other reasons that bad things happen, you know.
So, I have a question here somewhere. Trying
Okay.
to think of how to articulate it. So, when do we know when he's disciplining us versus what was taking us through a hard time? How do we know when he's disciplining us versus when
Yeah, I don't know
he's
if you
teaching
always
us?
know why you're going through it. Sometimes you may not know until afterwards
The discipline?
that it was for your own good.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you don't always recognize it at the time. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but sometimes if it's a, I mean, sometimes you can see if it's a consequence of something you did,
Right.
then
That
it's,
comes
it
more
may not be
immediate.
God.
You can relate it.
Yeah, I mean, so it may not be if it's, you know, if you threw a rock at somebody's car and then they followed you and beat you up. That may not be God disciplining you. That's the result. That's the result of a bad decision. It's a natural consequence.
Yeah,
It's a natural consequence, and it could also be the enemy attacking you.
What could be?
The situation you're going through
Oh, yeah.
could be the enemy, and so you may not always know the difference.
Yeah.
And so, and there are things that you can do to open yourself up to attack from the enemy.
Yeah.
And you may not recognize it as that until, so it's not always obvious. Yeah, I don't know if
That's
there's
why we have to pray
obvious
for
ways.
discernment, so we know when things are happening.
Yeah,
Right?
and you pray that whatever you're going through, whether God calls it or not, that He can use it. You pray that He uses it, that you learn from it, if there's something you can learn from. I mean, sometimes it's just not a learning experience. It's just, you know, you just made a bad decision and
Yeah.
you know not to make that decision again. But and if He's disciplining you, then you really want to pray that you learn it. So you don't have to-
I don't need
Walk
any more
around in the
lessons.
desert for 40 years. You ain't learned yet.
Right.
Isn't that bush? That's the same bush, right?
Well, your shoes ain't worn out, so you still must love you. You still
Feels like you're wearing the same shirt for 40 years.
40 years.
Someone loves you.
Yeah.
You walk around in
I
circles.
think this shirt is out of fashion now. My bell bottoms are dragging in the sand. Ooh. All right. In conclusion,
What was, I'd make a note for Hebrews 5:8. What?
Hebrews 5:8 was Jesus learning through suffering.
Son though he was, he learned obedience from what he suffered.
So,
Okay.
so from whatever we're going through, we want to learn the lesson.
Yeah, you want to learn the lesson from whatever you're going through. You don't want to try to shortcut it.
Yeah.
And we talked about in the last lesson that how sometimes you plant a seed and you don't know what's happening to it. The growth is up to God. So sometimes you'll do something, you pray for something, you plant a seed, and the growth is up to God. But sometimes we're like the seed. Sometimes we're like the seed. We're like the seed because the farmer God puts us into the dirt. We're in the dirt, and it's dark, and we don't hear anything. We don't see any progress going. We just know that we're in the dirt. And we're thinking, did the farmer forget about us? I haven't seen any sunlight in days. You know, why am I down here in the dirt? And every now and then it gets wet. You know, the dirt is like now it's dark and it's wet and I'm in this dirt. And then every now and then they're putting manure on me. So I'm getting this crap put on top of me. I'm getting more manure and you're in the dirt and it's dark and it's damp and it's smelly now.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we're that seed, but the seed is protected. The seed has a coating around it that protects it. Just like, you know, Moses, they were killing the babies and he got put in a basket and got saved. You know, Joseph had a dream and he told him to go to Egypt. So the seed is protected, so God will protect us, and the seed also has provision. The seed has provision. So the seed, inside the seed, it can't get nutrients from the soil, but the seed has something inside of it. It has nutrients. The seed has nutrients built into it. The seed has stuff inside of it that can get it through. The seed has something inside of it that will help. There's provision for it, that will help nurture it. It's built into the seed. But the seed also has potential. The seed has potential because it can change. And so at some point the seed starts to change. It's been in the dirt long enough, it's been in the dark long enough, it's been in the dampness long enough, and then something starts to happen to it. It starts to change. Starts to change and a root starts to come out and it starts to change into something different. But then when the root comes out, now this dirt that was in it, this smelly stuff, this dampness, it can use that to nurture it. So this darkness, this situation that was in, it uses that to grow. It uses that to get nutrients out of it. It makes it stronger and it helps it grow into what it needs to be. And so sometimes when we're in a dark situation, you know, God may be changing us, and that dark situation may be just what we need to nurture us, to grow us into something else, so grow us into the potential to where we want to be. So God may be transforming you. So you may be in a dark situation now, but it could be because God is transforming you to grow into a large, huge tree, larger than you've ever seen and larger than you ever imagined.
Right.
So God may be changing you.
Yeah. That's a good example, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
That's good.
Just walking away, let's seek the truth and live the life.
There you are.
What did you say about hate? What is the Greek word?
The Greek word for hate, the Greek
Maseo.
word is, where is that?
Is it Maseo?
Oh, yeah. So
It's not that you hate, it's to love others less.
Miseo, yeah, to love less.
Love less. Okay.
Love less.
Love less.
So love your mother and father less, your wife less, your children, your brothers and sisters less than God.
Okay.
So if you don't love them less than God, you can't be a disciple.
Okay.
You can't be a disciple.
That's hard for some people to understand, especially when they love their family. But if you think of, you know, like oxygen is something that you need. God is your oxygen. If you don't have it, you can't be there for other people. So if you don't put God first, then what God gives you, you're not going to be able to give it to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be in the proper form.
Right. Right.
So you're not going to be what you need to be. Yeah. So you're gonna.
But at least it makes more sense like this if you think about it as not actually hate. You know, why would I hate my?
Yeah.
Right.
But to love them less makes a lot more sense than hating them. Than